What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creator Jeff Parker. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me back.
Man, I'm excited. Last time we talked, it was right when Batman, Santa Claus, Silent Night was coming out, and in the midst of Negaduck series from Dynamite. And you have a new series, another series in the Batman Santa Claus. You've got a Zootopia book coming out from Dynamite. So I want to kind
Yeah,
of just check in and see how things are going and catch up on some comics with you.
it's going great. We've got an extra issue this time for Batman Santa Claus. Silent Night Returns is the team. I couldn't resist playing on Dark Knight Returns. So yeah, they liked it. The response was really great, probably because of this podcast. And
You know,
so they said, "Do you want one more issue this time?" I'm like, yes, of course. I always want more.
so if people missed our first conversation, where did the idea originate to kind of create this world of Batman, Santa Claus, Silent Night?
It really started with a couple of the editors, the editor in chief, Marie Javins, and the Bat editor at the time, Ben Abernathy, were just talking about things. They were probably trying to fill their later of the year schedule, and they were thinking about things they could do. And somehow, I think they got on one of those. This is the way a lot of good stuff comes about. You're kind of making jokey ideas and then realize you have something.
Hmm.
And I think they were talking about like, what if Santa Claus and Batman already knows him and all that. And then they called me and ran it by me, and I went, "Oh yeah, I could do it. No, if you play it straight, we could do some really good stuff with that." And then I gave them back my pitch, which was this whole thing where Santa's more like a Norse demigod, sort of Thor-like figure. And and it his connection to Krampus and how the story could go. And they were into it, and then Michelè Bandini came on to do most of the art, and bam, readers really responded. It was a great time. It was fun because it came out every week in December. So I got to it was kind of like working on a radio show or something where you get like a little feedback every week. That was really fun.
Yeah, I guess the only difference is then you can't adjust. So it is going to be the story you wanted to tell is what it is
Yeah,
right
well,
off the bat.
and I would never adjust anyway. That's
Right.
one of my golden rules. It's like sometimes audiences, will figure out what you're going to do, and I've seen naming any names, but I've seen people respond to that and then change their plans. And I think it's a huge mistake. It's like just let them be smart and figure out something once in a while. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to if you once you start changing things to kind of juke the reader or whatever, it just goes bad and characters act out of character and you get all kinds of weirdness. So yeah, it's like and it's not really about that anyway. It's about the ride and
Right.
and how much fun it could be.
Yeah. Well,
So
because we as readers don't know what we want sometimes, anyways, right? Like we want to guess it, and then if we guess it, it's too predictable. But then if it isn't what we want, then it's what are we
and
doing?
and you keep hearing like all the people trying to push generative AI. They're saying, "Hey, we'll let them decide what they want in a story." And like, that's not what I want out of a story. I want to experience something, and I'm not one. No one's paying me as the fan to watch the
Right.
show or whatever. Like, I want to be told a good story, and like once you start making it some kind of choose your adventure thing where you're just throwing random cues up and it's coming back at you. It's just not rewarding in that way. It's just not, it's terrible.
Yeah, for sure. So, you said the response was great for the first series of the Batman Santa Claus. At what point was it enough to say, maybe we tell another story in this? Like, how early on in the process did you know you had another story in you or that
Oh
you
yeah, I
wanted to
think
do
just
another?
a few weeks after the last one shipped, they were already talking about,
Okay.
hey, maybe we could get started earlier this time. And so I immediately sat down and started thinking, okay, what could it be about? And and then I thought about the Silent Knight himself, who was a DC character from the 50s Brave and the Bold comics. And I thought, well, hey, this time I could make it so that the title is actually very specific. That would be kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And then I started getting into and I wanted to also keep it in my mind, these are all ghost stories. It's the old Christmas tradition of telling ghost stories, which people may not think is a tradition, but it used to be a real thing like before, we came along. And I was like, I think it just works for a reason. It's something about the time of year, the solstice. It's cold and dead in the world. It kind of all goes together. And I think it's no coincidence that Halloween and Christmas are, pretty close together.
Yeah. So when you started to get this idea though of like, okay, I want to use the Silent Night and things like this, how was the process then of kind of figuring out then how to keep it in the same, story arc, but moving it forward?
I I used to one of the things that occurred to me, there was this a thing at the end of issue 3 last year where you see all these big monsters that a possessed Superman frees from a glacier. And they all come tromping out and Bandini just designed the heck out of these guys. They look so cool. And then the artist who had to come in and draw the last issue drew a bunch of entirely different monsters. Like, because I think like they had already been assigned, like Bandini wasn't, something was going on back in Italy. And anyway, they were going to come in and draw the last part. And I guess they hadn't seen what he had designed. So, I even though I wrote describing what they were, we still ended up with a bunch of different cool looking but different monsters. And then I thought, what if I just made that a story point? Like what, like where did those guys go? and it's one of those kind of things. I was just sort of zenning along with it, like what if I just make what's really a mistake into an actual thing that's a reason? And then you find out pretty early on in our story that those guys were marked with the little accolade of the night, and they immediately went to back to their duty of trying to bring him back together, so that he could bring the Hollow Kingdom back to Earth. And and that's why Batman's explaining what happened, like Superman freedom. Superman's like, I did? I don't remember this.
It's so good.
And then and of course the thing that really makes the whole thing sing is uh Lucas Kettner, who's drawn the Count Crowley book for Dark Horse, and you might know him from Witch Doctor. He became available, and he's local. He's here in Portland with me. And I thought, oh my God, this is all right up Lucas's alley and everything. So, we ran it by the editors, and they were like, "Yeah, he's great." And so he became the main artist, and Bandini still comes in to do the parts of the B story throughout, but now it's not a bunch of different artists; it's literally just two.
Yeah.
Um, and Lucas like really got into it. I mean, he was designing all kinds of cool stuff. Um, he does the best Zatanna. And he's good at drawing kids. Like he draws Damien and Irie West, Thunderheart, so perfect. And you got to have a couple of kids to kind of anchor the story because it's a Christmas story, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's been fun, and it's been one of those rare times where I can sit down with the artist in person, and we sit there and doodle stuff and pass it back and forth and shoot out ideas, and it's real collaborative in the way you always want comics to
Hmm.
be. Because a lot of times what you're doing is you're just emailing somebody back and forth from thousands of miles away and hoping you're on the same page and everything. But yeah, Lucas and I were able to get really in sync for this, and I think you can tell.
Yeah. That's got to be a different experience of kind of almost maybe an old school experience of more of a collaborative working process, being so close together, being able to have those bouncing ideas off each other in person and stuff, and not like, all right, what time zone are we in now?
Yeah, it's like somebody's sleepy and someone just woke up and yeah, or something like that trying to talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is probably closer to like the old Will Eisner studio or something where everybody's hanging out together.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that helps this series along really well is that you are doing the succinct issues each week, right? Like it's now you said five, so 5 straight weeks of this comic, and it's you're not forgetting what you read because you read it a month ago. You're getting the
Yeah.
chance. Do you think that helps with alongside just being a great story, like being able to be very consistent with that people, enjoying it more that way?
I think so, because I think we don't have to spend a lot of time recapping anything. Like comic space, you don't have much room to tell this story. You got 20 some pages maybe. And so we don't have to waste any time. Like you literally just read this the other day. Here it is. We're all back in it. You can go back and refer to your old comic book. We're just going to keep going with it. So yeah, you do have to write in a different way, I
Mm.
think, when it's monthly versus if it's coming out every week. And of course, this, just like the first series, will be compiled in a trade. So I think it will like read perfectly that way. Yeah, it's like if it's all that close together, then when you get a trade, it should be fine.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed too in this series is you continued in the first series you did it, and then in this one you continue to just take everyone and anyone from the DC pool of characters. How has that been for you? Of like just like were there certain characters that like you knew you wanted to get in the first series that just didn't make it that you're like I'm gonna find a way in the second series and stuff like this?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we introduced a lot of the main Justice League in the first one, but then we had some throw you some curves like Miss Martian shows up. Um, and actually that was a curve to me too, because originally I was going to have that literally be Man Bat. And and then they told me, what, no, there's something going on, Man Bat, blah, blah, blah. It was part of story plans. So I said, okay, well, it's got to be somebody who can imitate one of these bat people. And and then I thought Miss Martian would be fun. It's like, yeah, I could bring, the Martian Manhunter in, but it's like you haven't seen her in a while. That would be kind of neat. Um, and then this one, of course, I got to go hog wild because it's more magical characters are more successful against against the Silent Knight. So I got to bring in Mary Marvel and Robot Man, Cliff Steele, and Metamorpho, and it's like, and of course one of my all-time favorites, Etrigan, the demon, Jason Blood. And I got to do the rare thing of having Jason Blood be in a whole comic without turning into the demon, which probably was shocking for people. Usually he's barely in a story 10 seconds before gone forms of man, but this time we because of his whole past of being a knight in Arthur's court, it played perfectly with the Silent Knight for them to know each other and for him to fill in everybody when they're at Baron Winter's place. And that's another kind of a deep cut. I think a lot of people now may not know about. There was this book called Night Force that came out in the early 80s, and Baron Winters was the main character. He walked around with his big cat and everything. And so he's in the story, and you see a lot of other magical characters in the back
Yeah.
who don't all just join the fun, maybe because they're kind of drunk because they're at a party or something, but so they think they better hang it out this time.
Yeah. You did a, I'm assuming you probably did a decent amount of research into the Norse mythology, Santa Claus, Krampus, all that stuff to kind of,
Mhm.
was it in the process where you're like, ooh, I could utilize this story or I want to tell my version of this story? Like, how deep of research did you do to kind of come up with the base of your search for your
Yeah,
story?
the only thing the main thing I used from Norse mythology, and that especially in the first one, was the whole concept of the wild hunt, and I changed it a little bit from what it is. Not too much. You definitely see fans of Thor. Walt Simonson may remember his run. That was a big thing with the elves and the wild hunt. Um, and ours is different. And this is where it apparently, for whatever reason, that's when they they break off the Rainbow Bridge and Santa and Krampus get stranded on our world. And that's when he just starts being himself and eventually creates the Santa myth.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, they generally refer to him as Claus. Batman calls him Chris. And I don't go into it, but my assumption was he was being referred to as Kris Kringle when Batman met him. And you always keep calling somebody whatever you met them, whatever you knew him by back in the day. But most of the time, everybody calls him Claus, except Superman, who just straight up calls him Santa every time he sees him, like a little child. And it's always fun to have Superman's reaction in this. I
Yeah.
was going to have Supergirl in this story, but she was busy with something, and and they said, no, you can use Superman again. And I went, really? That seems like it would be harder than I would thought. But yeah, I was like,
Okay.
of course, I'll never turn down Superman. That
Right. Well, he does have that he has that childhood joy every time he sees Santa. Like it just I literally will read like Buddy the Elf saying Santa
yeah,
when Superman says like that is how I get
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
Um
because like he's used to in stories, usually people are flipping out because he's there.
mhm,
And for once, you get to see Superman just like losing his mind over and over again because Santa is helping. And
yeah.
it's that's just too fun to write. You can't leave it out.
Yeah. One of the things that is cool too about this is we're getting the seasonal book, right? Of a holiday book that, you know, I feel like it's one of those that can come along of like, every kind of Christmas time, December, early December, I'm going to pick up Batman, Santa Claus, Silent Night, and now Silent Night Returns because it just feels right. Is it does it have any effect of you like writing a book where it's like, all right, I'm doing a holiday theme or storytelling? Does that change how you write it all, or is it just like, no, this is just a story I'm telling in the midst of this setting I have?
The latter, and
Yeah.
but also I have to get in Christmas mode like back in springtime, so which is a little like, okay, I've got to pretend like because I'm thinking about when the reader is reading it and
Hmm.
everything. So I'm thinking of like, let's get snow in there. Let's get, let's get all Christmassy because I'm trying to not make it gimmicky with like
Right.
you could do Christmas puns all day long and it's not gonna stick with you or be very rewarding. But you got to dress it up a little bit. There's got to be little, and we try to do that where like it's not the driving force, but there's little things that Santa does that are like, oh, that's exactly how Santa might solve this situation. Like there's a street gang tearing up Gotham as soon as they hear Batman's missing or whatever, and Batman and Santa and Robin go after him, and you think you're going to get a big fight that goes on, but then you realize how Santa would actually approach the situation. And you go, oh, we wrapped it up really quick.
Hmm.
I'm trying not to spoil things for people, but
Right.
that's an issue, beginning of issue two.
I will
Uh,
say that is that entrance is a classic superhero entrance, and it's so good.
yeah, good. Yeah, and Lucas did such a great job on these Fury Road characters all over the place. Like, I love the fact there's somebody on a dirt bike holding a dagger just going vroom in the background. I was like, that is so cool. He's great at building out the world that way.
Yeah. So you have to get your hot cocoa in March to start writing this and get your
Exactly.
mindset.
I gotta sit in a cold room, all that sort of thing.
Is this a world that like, if DC and sales keep asking like that you'd love to continue to explore, or like is this kind of the second arc kind of like where you feel like I've told the story I want to tell?
Rob Levin, the editor, and I have talked about the possibility of one more big event story connected to all this. And it's like, I don't know. I bet the way it would happen is just my guess is that instead of doing it going right into next year, they would probably let you sit out a year
Hmm.
just so that you miss it. You know,
Yeah.
because that seems to be the way they tease and launch things. Um, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think sales are good on this again. So yeah, we have a pretty neat idea, like the germ of an idea, and just in case I've been thinking of like, oh, who all would appear in this one? Um, because we used a lot of characters this time. Like
Yes.
a bunch of people turn. Nubia shows up. Um, John Stewart, all kinds of from the Daily Show. Everybody shows up.
That'd be great. Stephen Colbert's
He's a
there.
Green
Like
Lantern for some reason.
he's just the fact that no one's written that some yet, or I'm sure someone has. I just haven't noticed it, but
They must that joke must have gotten in there somewhere. There's no
it
way
has. It has
people
to have.
left that
Otherwise, I'm
alone.
disappointed in every Green Lantern writer. But what we talked about this being kind of it's a seasonal book, but I think it can read whenever you want. Is there any book that you have like that you've grown up where you're like though where it just feels right to like every year you're like I'm hitting whether it's in Halloween time or any season? Is there a book for you like in graphic novel possibly that where you're like man this is I always got to read it around this time?
The some of the Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge stuff that's set or that has all the Chris, 'cause, they did a lot of Christmas material, and I love reading that stuff at Christmas. It just feels right.
Hmm.
Um, I also used to have these Dennis the Menace digests just packed full of Dennis Christmas stories. And for years, I would always like go dig those out. Like, well, it's time to read that again. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, I know I'm missing something obvious, but right now I'm going to stick with the ducks.
Yeah.
They always come through for me on Christmas.
Well, you do have a love for animated characters as well. We talked about you had the Naked Duck book last year. And you have a new book coming out from Dynamite, Zootopia.
Yeah,
Talk to me about that a little bit. Where did that process come about for getting the right Zootopia?
the editor Nate Cosby, who I worked with on Negaduck, showed me two things. He's like, "Look, I'm going to be editing these," and I was like, "Zootopia," and like my eye went straight to that one. And he was like, "Good. I was hoping that was the one you were going to say." And then we immediately just started talking about Zootopia because
So,
we're both big fans of the movie, and it was we thought it was weird that like that came out and then there wasn't anything really. There was a little the Plus show about it, but I didn't watch that. I would have thought they would. Now they're doing a second movie, and I would have thought this would have been top priority.
yeah,
But I don't know like how. I remember I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was great. So, but I don't know how they choose to do sequels or whatever.
right.
Apparently it works. Moana 2 is doing great, so
So what was it about Zootopia though? Like you saw it, like you said you liked the movie. Like why do you gravitate towards Zootopia?
I liked the world building in it was
Mm,
really good. The way they figured out the whole thing, it's like they're all mammals for one thing. And which still, when I'm writing it, I think, oh, it'd be cool to have a lizard person here. And then I write, well, no, that's not the world of Zootopia though. It's got to be mammals. And Uh, I just I like the idea. To me, what they were doing was like showing you the old thing people would joke about, like, what if Disney animals met real animals? And that's kind of what happens in the story, like they're running up against ferocious wild animals naked, and it freaks everybody out because they're civilized. And I just thought that was a great premise. And they dealt with, when you go back and watch the movie, they dealt with a lot of heavy stuff
mm-hmm.
that they still like use a lot of comedy to kind of not bum you out, but at the same time, it gave it a real weight to it that a lot of Disney stuff doesn't have,
Right.
and it's just one of my favorite things Disney's done in decades. Um, and the characterization was great. There weren't any cheap laughs. Is also something I liked. Yeah, that they could have easily done the DreamWorks fart jokes, and
Yep.
everybody's just going into making their little quips and stuff like that. But they don't. They play the humor straight out of character every time, and that's the kind of thing that really sticks with me. I appreciate it as a writer.
Yep.
It's always impressive.
So what is your story that, kind of teasing us with of what you're going to tell in the world of Zootopia here?
Well, we're just really what we're doing is looking at the day to day of Nick and Judy
Mm.
now both being cops on the force and what they go through. You go in, get yelled at BOGO and given your assignment in the morning and then hit the bricks, and go out and, and do your job. But of course, because of who they are, they immediately bumble right into something that's bigger than a normal crime.
Mm.
And I think it's kind of obvious that like they're destined to be detectives instead of just uniformed police officers. It's like they're too good at it, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, she's too tenacious and won't give up anything, and he's got that whole grifter thing of being a street guy who really knows how things work. And it just it's one of those perfect teams. It's a perfect pairing. I love Justin Bateman's voice. I love the fact that he kept trying to do different voices, and they kept saying, "No, just talk the way you talk. You already sound shady enough. Like just talk exactly as you do."
So do you have to listen to Jason Bateman movies in the background while you're writing the character so you get the
It does
voice?
help. Actually, I listen. I keep joking. He's going to get really mad, but Nate Cosby, the editor, sounds just like Nick Wilde. Like he kind of talks like him. He's sort of got the delivery and cadence. Like literally, all I have to do is talk to him about the book, and it feels like, well, there, that fox told me what to do, and then I just start working on it.
Ah, and I just literally just have Arrested Development episodes on in the background while I'm reading this, and I'll be perfect.
That would work too.
But well, that's so cool that you get to experience, getting the right, this character. Does the movies, I take it, don't influence what you do at all, right? Because you have probably have no connection with them. You're just like, this is a story I want to tell in this world.
Yeah, they won't tell me what's in the movie. I didn't ask, and but they are like reading through to make sure I think I don't do something similar or
Mm.
something that contradicts maybe what they're going to do.
Okay.
Uh, and I guess I haven't because no one's really given me any notes like that. They seem to like it. So, phew, that's always a relief.
Right.
Um, because you have no idea and you can't sit there and guess at what it is. It's like that would be weird. I'm looking forward to it just like anybody else. I can't wait till it comes out.
Yeah. So how long is this series? Because you said the other one, the Batman one is now five. What is this one?
We're starting we're starting with six.
Okay.
And I assume they're going to do I always call them Hellboy arcs because to me that Hellboy was the one that really set that mode of like these stories that take arcs of 5 or 6 and they just keep coming out like that. Uh I could be wrong. I don't know exactly how Dynamite's going to number it when it gets beyond issue 6. But probably 7, but that's the way I see it. That's the way I'm planning the first arc anyway, with 6 parts. And also they kind of stand alone. So till you get to the end, and then you realize it's all connected.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about comics with me. I
Yeah.
know you've got your Batman Santa Claus Silent Night Returns is going out, it's out in stores right now. Also the first arc
Yeah,
in
number
trade.
4 will be out this week, I think.
Mm. And Zootopia is coming out in what January is this issue one?
Yeah.
And
So I don't
Negaduck
know why
trade
all
is
my
coming out.
stuff's in the winter, but it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because, usually everything gets loaded into summer. And it's like people only have so much money, It's like so
Yeah.
hopefully coming out with some good books in the middle of winter is helpful for readers.
Right. And if you didn't pick up Negaduck, the trade's coming out in January as well. So
Yeah.
uh and then hopefully or next year, the year after, we'll get back to talk more about Batman and more Santa Claus and then whatever Disney Dynamite property that they have, like maybe Bonkers or something. But Jeff, anything else that you we haven't talked about that you want to mention real quick before I let you go?
Let's see. Everything's too early and murky to talk about at this
Mm.
point. I'll just bug you and try to shoehorn myself in here again
Perfect.
as soon as I can say something. If
Okay.
you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people follow along with you to stay up to date so when you can talk about stuff that you got coming up?
Okay. I am on Bluesky a lot at Jeff Parker. Dot blue Biscay social. That's the new Twitter for me.
Mhm.
So and And my website is jeffparkerwrites.com. So, which I really need to update. So, look for me in those two places, and and I'll try to give you extra content that might be fun. You can tell I practiced that sentence.
Perfect. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about comics. And by all means, I can't wait to talk to you again when you got more stuff that we can talk about. But until then, gang, there's a lot of good Jeff Parker comics out there right now that you need to go buy and read. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out.